Those who have carried vision through stranger space than words can allow to tell, call for healing, filling moment with meaning, sending thought to trigger change for self and globe. There are many now who understand things once unspeakable, to anchor in new direction while giving reflection to renewed interest in higher aspects of life and being. Some things are not yet meant to be shared. Even willingness does not denote one ready to comprehend meaning, leading it to this. Forever will we play, dancing through eternity with friends and fortune, teaching each other, one another, about what's to come, but more importantly, what is. I am rambling, making sense to me. Are you lost in my words? Do you not see the sparkle of realization, the memory that too indwells the far corridors of your own soul's knowing? Think me crazy, but these metaphors are for them that know, who feel beyond doubt of what I speak. Come with me, and I will light our attachments to each other, measure our similarities rather than just focus on our differences. Truth imbues soul with knowing, always available, no longer necessary to hermit ice-top, snow-capped mountains, meditating frigid waterfalls in search of lost paradise. Come, I await you. This way leads home. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv, and I thank you for taking the time to join me on this October 25th, 2014, as we move into soon what will be a new year. And time absolutely feels like it's accelerating at quicker pace, and that we are scooting through the cosmos, and I pray that we continue to have peace and just time to reflect and to prepare and to awaken those that we can that are seeking answer and looking for guidance and proper direction for honoring the kingdom and that aspect of self which yearns for reconnection with the Creator and the creation. And, we have to do our part in whatever ways that we can to try to assist others, because it's a part of service to self, is service to others, as Christ exampled so perfectly to us, in that we pray and we hope that, our loved ones, our family members, our children especially, parents, grandparents, those that are closest to us, our closest associations, acquaintances, friends, that they will just all of a sudden get it, and that they will then, being intrigued, go seeking more, and to seek differently and better than what most of the world is, preoccupied with deception and illusion, and has no concern for anything that, in my opinion, is real and should hold priority. But they think of us as the Looney Tunes and the helicopter crew, those that are lunatic fringe, and so they're making fun of us as we are hoping that they would come to realization on some of the most critical issues. And with the way things are going, the state of the affairs of the world, and the way that things are being pushed as far as the New World Order and the agenda for namely depopulation, and other aspects of the Georgia Guidestones, the 10 guiding principles that the global elite want to push all peoples to: global tyranny, rule with impunity, justice and the rule of law for those that can afford it, and survivability to such a degree that most have no other time than to labor for slave wages, and there's no benefits at all. That's been kind of cut out, and until our bodies are so worn out and so broken down that they give out on us. And that's part of the plan. But anyways, in the meantime, while we are here, while we are on this planet, and while we are coming to remembrance and doing what we can to fulfill our sacred duty, our celestial vows to one another and to the Creator, and to that aspect of ourselves that is the connecting link to the Most High and the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, we have to also, it's important to maintain balance and to try to find joy and happiness in our daily lives, in our interactions with it, to not get overwhelmed and depressed and pushed into a corner where life seems unworthy of living, and that you give up hope and your happiness and your joy. And that's an easy thing to do, especially for those that are just now awakening to the strange nature of what we are dealing with as a world and as a people. Alright, so today I've got some very interesting texts lined up for you. It's a lot that I don't believe a lot of you have heard about, and if you are one of those that asked me for a copy of the electronic PDF, the electronic copy of the Kolbrin Bible, and that I sent it to you, whoever scanned this particular PDF and that made it available at some point long ago, it's since been eradicated from the web. You cannot find it anymore, but it was available to internet searchers sometime in the past, but they didn't scan certain aspects of the Kolbrin Bible, and so I didn't realize this because I have a hard copy of it, and I prefer to read from hard copy. I don't like to use my computer to read, since I do so much on it anyways, and I like to spend my time outside with the creation, with the great mystery, and hear the birds sing and watch my cats frolic and in jubilation, and to read in that manner and to have the sun beating down on me and the wind kind of blowing through my hair and that kind of thing, and you know, I feel like I'm part of the giant family when I'm out there in the elements and, you know, part of the creation and in that kind of way. And so I try to limit, because we all do so much research anyways on the computer. But if I can, I prefer to read a hard book. But I did go into the electronic copy of the PDF that I've sent to you and that I have myself, and this whole chapter and many of the other scrolls that are part of this particular book, I think it's called the Book of Manuscripts in the Kolbrin Bible, that many of them are missing. And so you will not be able to find this information in that electronic copy. And so this really will be the first place that it will become available to the public in electronic form, and this will be more through radio, because I did try to read it into clips, and I was going to play those clips and then share commentary, but for whatever reason, Blog Talk would not allow me to upload the audio clips, and every time I attempted to do so, it would time out or something would happen. I was only successful of 1 of 4, and so I'm actually going to read the text, and I've scanned it, and so I have these digital images of this particular chapter, which in the Kolbrin text it's only 4 full pages, and you know, 2 of those pages are only partial, and so it's not a great amount of reading. But we are also going to share discourse on the Emerald Tablets, which those of you that have been long-time listeners have heard me read, specific the Emerald Tablet number 8, which talks about Atlantis, and Thoth is giving a recounting of what happened to Atlantis and how it was destroyed, why it was destroyed, the things that they got involved in as the sons of God, the sons of both the law and the sons of the light, and also the sons of Belial, because there was a split off, and though the priesthood became emboldened and occupied with evil. And this particular text gives interesting accounting of that, and so we'll go back and forth. But I definitely will be able to get through the entirety of the text today, and that if you have any interest in Atlantis at all, in the prior times, in the fallen angels, the rebel angels being here, like as it says with the Sumerian Kings list, that the so-called gods with little g, the pagan deities of the many various cultures and civilizations worldwide that embrace a myriad pantheon of both gods and goddesses. You're going to find this information intriguing, to say the least. And it aligns with not only the Emerald Tablets, but also the accounting of Plato and what he talks about in Timaeus and Critias about Solon and his visit to Egypt, and how he was taught by the elder mystics there about, you know, these prior times and these particular fallen angels, what we call fallen angels, what they refer to as gods, how it is that they had once ruled over this particular mother culture, and that, again, you have to reference and remember that they were here before the modern creation of Adam and Eve and what was the next installment of the Second World Age, which that's the 7,000 years that we find ourselves in now. And so, I'm going to go ahead and go into this text. Again, it's called the Scroll of Thotis. For those that have hard copies of the Kolbrin Bible, it's in the second part. The first part is those manuscripts that were kept and safeguarded by the Egyptian priesthood, and the next particular passage was a mix of the Egyptian priesthood and also the Druidic priesthood, and those that were in Great Britain, because this particular text was supposedly kept secretive there at one of those abbeys that was destroyed by Longshanks, and that it almost got wiped out and eradicated a number of times, and that was one of the reasons why in 2006 they decided to make it public, but that a certain family had safeguarded it and kept it hidden and protected for hundreds, if not, it's been passed down for thousands of years. And this particular text goes way back. It has commentary on the prior times that talks about the reign of the fallen angels. All of that is included within the manuscript as well. It says this: these writings are dedicated to the great God who is eternal. May they live forever among things that survive to serve man. May they be an enlightening lesson and a warning to those who follow. For now, a dark night of ignorance and fear overshadows the land. Your servant bows to your will, O great God, who is benevolent towards those who serve with purity of intent. We who remain loyal glorify you, not with mere words, for the time of hypocrisy has passed, but in our inmost thoughts and in our deeds. We remember you as the sun rises to your glory in the morning, and as in the evening it sets into your peace. Teach us that there is joy in being your servants. Keep us under your protecting wing. Great Spirit, who made the Nile to flow, the great water which never wearies or ceases. One second, I gotta go seize the other text, because it is 4 different scans, and so I'll have to stop in between. Alright. Alright, Great Spirit, who made the Nile to flow, the great water which never wearies or ceases from its journeying, its movement is as everlasting as the wind. May the stream of my life be filled to overflowing with the waters of righteousness. Loose the shackles of wickedness which hold me captive. Let not the string of my lute be broken while I play, and let not my labors be ended before their fulfillment. Though men hail me for a greater thing than any that has been done before, it will not be my memorial. Time will eat away my name, but let many mornings dawn on my waking, that I may complete the task entrusted to me. Remove the fears that lurk about me in the solitude. Cut off the bonds of affliction that bind me down. Let my spirit roam free. We who remain loyal to know your laws and the great law, which is as firm as the hills of immortality. In the days to come, great songs will be sung unto you, even as they were sung in the days of old. The priest can no longer be held in restraint by motive, and dark days threaten us. It is a time of foreboding, yet there is peace throughout Kahimu. The state of men in high places is such that the beauty of truth has to be concealed from them, lest they profane even her purity. Under the shelter of her mantle, even those strengthened by the vision seen in the eternal chambers are liable to lapse into many wickednesses. They would say in their hearts, being one who is purified, I am safe. I can cleave the dark waters of evil as a seabird does the ocean, and rise, all wickedness falling away from me as water falls from the back of the soaring bird. Thus it is today and was even in the days long gone, for such things are written in the old manner of a scroll found at Hanu. The first land on earth wherein men dwelt was not Kahemu. It was a land out beyond the salt waters. To this land came the immortal spirit in the form of a radiant one from heaven, who had left his more enlightened place to dwell among beasts in the lower kingdom of sorrow. In some mysterious way, he became incarnated as a man. How, we know not, but he founded the race of man. It is not as recorded in tales told for the ignorant. Alright, I'm going to stop here because I want to make commentary on this particular passage. First, this particular individual is trying to endeavor to write about the olden books and to share scrolls that were even ancient in his day. And if you read the Kolbrin Bible, this is repeated over and over. And it's my opinion that they were led by the Great Spirit before it got into the hands of like the pagan priests and also the Druidic priesthood, those that were led astray and that gave themselves over to the darkness, abusing their position and their authority, much like the priest of the Catholic Church today. And that in the old days, when some of this material was first being scripted and preserved and passed on, that these individuals had righteous deed and that they were called by the Spirit to do so. And that this individual also speaks about how it is that the other men of knowledge, other wisdom keepers, how they are going astray and how they're getting involved in darkness. And Thoth also speaks about this. But what is interesting to me about this particular paragraph is that it reminds me of the story of Lucifer, the light bearer, and how so many believe that he's the creator of humanity when he was only the giver of the heavenly secrets, and he was one that helped to guide culture and civilization to make it what most people think was beneficial, to make it flourish in the way that it did back then. But he's also the one that demanded blood sacrifice and instituted worship of himself and the other fallen angels. And so, how beneficial was that? And that's why it says in the book of Enoch that even the Watchers, when they were not the only group that brought down the heavenly secrets or the secrets of the heavens, the rebel angels were the first. And Lucifer as the light bearer and the 1/3 of the angels of the Most High that joined him in rebellion and in insurrection and were cast out on the second day, and that were here and banished to the dark earth before we ever came, that they were involved in manipulating, experimenting, and doing everything they could to make this their home and also to establish themselves as gods. All right, and so, that's why I find this passage where it says, "To this land came the immortal spirit in the form of a radiant one from heaven, who had left his more enlightened place to dwell among beasts in the lower kingdom of sorrow." This is also the story of Yaldabaoth in the Gnostic text. In some mysterious way, he became incarnated as man. Just like as it says in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, that the elder ones of the rebel angels, when they left their place of habitation and they came to be housed here in this particular solar system, and having taken residence on both planet X and also here, as well as other places like Mars, that somehow they're leaving their place of habitation and also stepping down in vibration to become manifest in this third dimensional reality, that they soon lost their ethereal form and their ability to step in and out of bodies and in and out of possession of flesh, and that they became trapped. And this is kind of the same story that is being reasserted here. All right. It gets really good. You're just going to be blown away by this particular text. And as I've stated in my other work with the prior times and some of the other things that I've talked about with the reign of the rebel angels, it aligns with all of that as well. If you have eyes to see, and the ears to hear, and a mind to understand. All right, continuing, and then I'll check the chat room if you have any questions. Again, we're reading from the Scroll of Thotis, from the Book of Manuscripts, chapter 31. None knows in truth the old motherland or where it was. There are tales, but they disagree. The 9 bows say it was southward. The learned priests are not united in thought. Some say toward the west where the sun sets. Okay, some of this is a little bit blurred, so I'm going to try to maintain the integrity and read it as best I can. It was scanned and the inner portion looks a little bit blurred, but I think I can make out the words. Towards the west where the sun now sets, while others say towards the east where the sun rises. Southward are great mountains and forests, monsters and men covered with hair. Here, winds were formed within the earth and issue forth from a black cavern. It is a place of chaos where water, soil, and air are not separate. The old motherland could not have been there. To the left-hand side, there is a great wilderness, the land of Amaru. the old motherland could not have given birth to such as these. To the right hand is the wide plain of man-eaters, which stretches out to the far reaches of old Kahemu. This was barren even in the olden times. To the north of the wilderness, the land is occupied by deformed men and dwarves, where amid this could have been the fertile pastures and plowlands well watered from the Sky River, where men lived in peaceful content. The old motherland was never there, nor, as some say, in the waters beyond, which boil at the extremity. Beyond the wide river there once was a land graced with all riches needful to men, crowned by many walled Meru, but it was not the land of our birth. Northward is the home of the cool breezes, but beyond the lands which skirt the salt water are the one-eyed peoples and the giants with white hair and eyes. Here the rocks and stones are of the whitest marble, and the trees bear white fruit. Then in the whiteness the eyes of men are blinded at their youth, for even the grass grows white. Believe this is the land of Hasugia, a place unproductive and barren, where fruit never appears on the trees and crops will not ripen? How could the old motherland lie in this direction? In the old books it is said that the old motherland was ruled by the Queen of Light, who was supreme above all. The temple tell that the lesser gods came to dwell among mortals when the mistress of brightness ruled in Kaluria, that they were sheltered in temples and priests were appointed to minister unto them. It is said that places of instruction were set up within the temples, but few men were taught the inner knowledge. It was rightly held that it would be a danger to those without wisdom, and it had to be safeguarded. Is this not the tale told in the Book of Beginnings? It is said that Kalathi lay within the borders of Kahemu, but could it not have been the land of similar sounding name outward from Puntas beyond God's land? Alright, couple other things before we move on to the third part of the scroll. Which I'm getting that prepared, so. And this is a clean scan, so I shouldn't have any problems. Alright, interesting that it speaks about the land surrounding the motherland as being inhabited by men that are covered, entirely with hair, much like the primitive worker, and that the Sumerian account speaks about how the rebel angels, or the Anunnaki, how they attempted to make a slave race of these Bigfoot-type beings, that these were the pre-Adamic creatures that were already here upon the planet when they arrived. And it also talks about these dwarf-like people and that were misshapen, and also these other deformed type of beings. and also the one-eyed peoples, Cyclops, and it mentions them in the same sentence, and the giants with white hair and eyes. So interesting. It reminds me of the story of Odysseus, the Odyssey, and his travels, and how he, met and encountered the Cyclops and some of these other weird and strange anomalous beings. Even the account of Berosus, when he speaks about the ancient times, and he gives an accounting to Alexander, who tasked him with writing down the history of the prior times and of those things which had been long forgotten in his day and age. And he wrote about the hybrid monstrosities that were created not only from the experimentation of the rebel angels upon some of these beings, but also their engaging in carnality with some of these beings, and that these hybrids were born unto them. And it spoke about many different types of creatures, all aspects of both human and creature beings, winged centaurs, minotaur people. In the Bible it speaks about the lion men of Moab. And so there's many different kind of creatures that are spoke about as what the Book of Giants calls the miscegenation, or the corruption, the genetic corruption of the DNA of both plant and animal creatures. And Berosus gives us the accounting, which I'm going to pull it up and just pinpoint one particular aspect of that quote for those that don't know what I'm talking about. It won't take me but a minute to find it. I've looked it up so many different times. But this so you are not having to not knowing what I'm talking about. And I'll post the text in the chat room too for those that are new to this information, so you can read this particular, which is a short passage in its entirety. And Berosus also accounts, like this particular scroll of Thotis does, as a radiant one, having left his higher place of habitation and coming here to the earth to live in this land of sorrows and to live amongst these creatures and these beasts. He calls this particular being Oanes in this text that I'm going to be reading from. And Oanes, for those that don't know, is the Old Testament god, little god, Dagon, the one that the Philistines worshipped. And Dagon is also the fish god for which the Pope gets his mitre from. The Pope's hat, which looks like a fish's head, that is continued reverence to Dogon or Dagon, and also the Dagon people call these particular beings the Nomos, and the Credo Mutwa in his accounting, he speaks of them as being the Chitauri, the Chitauli, and how they were part reptilian, sometimes part fish, and part human, and so there was often two different kinds of forms that they would come in, either that of a feathered serpent or that of this particular hybrid human fish kind of person. And he also accounts, Berosus also says that Oanes is the one that help to establish civilization and culture, and to teach people how to compile laws, taught them letters and sciences, taught them even when to plant, how to construct cities, the founding of temples, the compilation of laws, the principles of geometrical knowledge. All these things, they account to this particular individual, Oannes, and they talk about he would come to instruct the people, and then when the sun would set, he would enter again into the sea and pass the night in the deep, because he was amphibious. Now I'm going to read about those kind of hybrid creatures that were found in this particular quote that are attributed to be in existence during the reign of this particular being. It says, there was a time in which there existed nothing but darkness, an abyss of waters wherein resided most hideous beings, which were produced of a twofold principle. There appeared men, some of whom were furnished with 2 wings, others with 4, and with 2 faces. They had one body but 2 heads, the one of a man, the other of a woman, and likewise in their several organs, both male and female. Other human figures were to be seen with the legs and horns of goats, like the satyrs or the goat, the goat man, which there's an account of one just being spotted in Kentucky. Some had horses' feet, while others united the hindquarters of a horse with the body of a man, resembling in shape the centaur. Bulls likewise were bred there with the heads of men, and dogs with 4-fold bodies terminated in their extremities with the tails of fishes. Horses also with the heads of dogs. Men too, and other animals with the heads and bodies of horses and the tails of fishes. In short, there were creatures in which were combined the limbs of every species of animal. In addition to these, fishes, reptiles, serpents, with other monstrous animals which assumed each other's shape and countenance, all which were preserved delineations in the temple of Belus at Babylon. In the Sumerian teachings, they also speak about this temple of Belus. They call it the temple of life, and this is a place where they had established all these cages to house all these hybrid beings, and where they did their genetic experimentations and their attempts to try to create this slave race, or what is referred to as the primitive worker. All this information is covered in my 6th book, Sons of God. But anyways, so I just wanted to share that, and then we'll go back into the Book of Manuscripts, chapter 31, the Scroll of Thotis, because I want to save some time to also talk about that one, the Emerald Tablet number 8, which also aligns with all of this information. Is it not said of both that they were engulfed in fire and water? In the Book of Beginnings it is said the generations passed, and a vast amount of knowledge and wisdom was accumulated and preserved in purity. It was the heritage of mankind, but though man had learned to cherish the light of truth and walk wisely with it, nevertheless, then as now, false priesthoods flourished. They pandered to the carnal desires of the undeveloped and exploited the weaknesses of the ignorant. Their iniquity built up a vast weight of evil in the netherworld, which projected itself into the material of earth, so that the powers which upheld it became unstable. This caused all the southern part of the old land to sink down into heaving waters. All right, let's stop there for a second and visit the first part of this passage that I want to quote from the Emerald Tablets to show you how they align up. It says, "Speak I of ancient Atlantis, speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows, speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep were they called by the wisdom of earthmen, called for the purpose of gaining great power. Far in the past, before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved into darkness, using dark magic, calling up beings from the great deep below us. Forth came they into this cycle, formless were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earthmen. Only through blood could they have formed being, only through man could they live in the world." Alright, so you see how even the beginning of this particular passage, it speaks about how these rituals were done by a priesthood that fell away from the ways of light. And like the sons of Belial, they started to open these stargates, open these portals, to do ritualized magic, to conjure up these formless beings and to invite them to come into this plane of existence. And when the blood was offered, ritual sacrifice, the victim sacrifice, the offering of children, just as it talks about in the Old Testament with how the Dagon and Moloch, these pagan gods, how they were worshipped by those of the sons of Belial, the seed of Cain. All right. One last paragraph and then we'll continue. One paragraph from the Emerald Tablet says, "In ages past were they conquered by the masters, driven below to the place whence they came. But some there were who remained hidden in spaces and plains, unknown to men. Lived they in Atlantis as shadows, but at times they appeared among men. When the blood was offered, forth came they to dwell among men." All right. Check the chat room real quick. And if you're interested in that text that I just read from, you can go to the Emerald, just look up the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Thoth, and it's Emerald Tablet number 8 that has this accounting of Atlantis and how they conjured up these dark entities. All right, yes, Jazz is asking me what I'm reading from. That was from the Emerald Tablets, number 8, but I'm reading from the Scroll of Thotis, Thotis, which is from the Book of Manuscripts in the Kolbrin Bible. It's chapter 31 for those that have the book in hard copy. All right, continuing. The disaster was brought about through the ascendance of evil. Rites which awakened the dead were rife among the carnal-minded and ignorant, while those who remained steadfast on the harder road of spiritual development had fixed their eyes on the light of head, ignoring the pitfalls at their feet. It was then, even as now, will men ever learn. This was the aspect of the disaster as written in the Book of Beginnings. There were openings in the land from which evil vapors poured forth as a mist, descending upon the people like a mantle. It spread out and covered the whole face of the land. The tongues of the people were stopped, and they became dumb with fear. The ground trembled beneath them, and great tongues of flame shot up. The whole land heaved and rocked like an ocean wave, As it rose and fell, groaned and shook, the fires which strove beneath burst forth to be met with shafts of lightning striking down from heaven. A thick black cloud of smoke filled the land, and men were smothered in dust. As the setting sun rested on the horizon, it could be but dimly seen beneath the cloud as a fiery red ball. When it had gone, a great dense darkness prevailed, lit only by great sheets of lightning. The waters broke heavily over the land, sweeping it clean. The plain and cities were covered, and new shores formed around the mountains. The waters mounted up until all that moved and lived was covered. The land was submerged. Mountain tops alone remained above the rush of uplifted torrent. Whirlwinds blew and brought cold winds which cleared away the dust and debris. Mud banks were formed, and a mountain mouth remained open to spew forth vile vapors. During one long awful night, the doomed land was torn apart and southward sank out of sight forever. A wise man has written, "This was not mountain-girt Kalathi or age-old Ramaku. This was the land out in the green waters where the sun sets beyond Keftu, near the lands of the Hendua." It is then said, "They came through the marshes and across the wild mountains beyond the barren place of stone into a new land called Ankeda. Here grew the great life tree known even in the days of our fathers. This is a tree of strange aspect, like unto no other, though in the days of our forefathers it was barren and closed in flames. Now we know that the life tree grew in Talius, which is toward the lands of Dawn, by Pontus. Therefore could not the old motherland have been found hereabouts? Not all was inundated. It is said men came out of the devastation. Behind them the land sank and the earth shook. Mountains split apart and crumbled. Where once there had been a valley, now stood a mountain. The air was filled with smoke, and hot rocks were hurled down from out of the sky. Men choked in brimstone. Great winds howled like 1,000 unearthly wild dogs. They left all behind them and came across the wild places to the land of refuge. Was not Kaiamu once known to some men as the land of refuge? Therefore the whereabouts of the old motherland is not unknown. It is said that when men came from the old land, the everlasting stars rested where earth meets heaven. But none knows how many lifetimes have passed since then. Thus, it is not impossible to discover where the old motherland lay. Therefore there is hope, and men need not despair, for the secret may be rediscovered when once again the sacred things rest in the old land from whence they came. The days of disturbance will cease, and once again men will live in peace. Men go forth to seek the road. All is not lost to us yet. Alright, before I continue with what are the final few paragraphs of this, I want to bring up two other things. One is Ezekiel chapter 26, which for those that are not familiar, talks about the destruction of Atlantis as well. So let me bring that up real quick. And then I'll read that to you. And then I want to make mention of a book that I had covered previously in other shows called Oahspe, Oahspe, I believe, or PSE. But anyways, I did a series of shows in that from the particular book about the land of Waga, which in that text, Waga is the same thing as the motherland. And remember, this is pre-Atlantis. This is that old culture, even before it was given, or what we know as the mythology that is connected to Atlantis, but that this goes further back in time than even, the stories and the mythologies of Atlantis. Ezekiel chapter 26, starting with verse 15, it says, "Shall not the isles shake at the sound of thy fall, when the wounded cry, when the slaughter is made in the midst of thee? Then all the princes of the sea shall come down from their thrones and lay away their robes and put off their broidered garments. They shall clothe themselves with trembling. They shall sit upon the ground and shall tremble at every moment and be astonished at thee. And they shall take up a lamentation for thee and say to thee, How art thou destroyed that wast inhabited of seafaring men, the renowned city, which was strong in the sea, she and her inhabitants, which caused their terror to be on all that haunt it. Now shall the isles tremble in the day of thy fall, yea, the isles that are in the sea shall be troubled at thy departure. For thus saith the Lord God, when I shall make thee a desolate city, like the cities that are not inhabited, when I shall bring up the deep upon thee, and great waters shall cover thee, when I shall bring thee down with them that descend into the pit, with the people of old time, and shall set thee in the low parts of the earth, in places desolate of old, with them that go down to the pit, that thou be not inhabited. And I shall set glory in the land of the living. I will make thee a terror, and thou shalt be no more. Though thou be sought for, yet shalt thou never be found again, saith the Lord God. And so the Most High is talking about Tyrus here. And he also speaks about how he has done this prior, in old times, and that he, caused the destruction of other cities, and how they disappeared in the deep. And in my mind, this is a reference to, inhabited of seafaring men, and that they used to terrorize all of the earth. It was the same thing that Plato said of the Atlanteans, who were trying to establish a new world order in that, way back in that, even during that time, and how it was that the Spartans and the Greeks were the ones that stood up and prevented them from, being able to assert global tyranny even way back then, and the establishment of what is the New World Order, which is really an old concept that goes back way, way back into the ancient past. Ever since the rebel angels have been cast here, banished here, they have been trying to establish the New World Order. All right. And so, I'm going to read another couple of the paragraphs of Emerald Tablets number 8. In the form of man moved they amongst us, but only to sight were they as are men. Serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men. Crept they into the councils, taking forms that were like unto men, slaying by their arts and the chiefs of the kingdoms, taking their form and ruling over man. Only by magic could they be discovered, only by sound could their faces be seen. Sought they from the kingdom of shadows to destroy man and to rule in his place. This passage aligns with the mythology of the dragon, and how the dragon in China was worshipped, and also that they believed that their culture and also that their kings were seated from these dragons, which is nothing more than the feathered serpent, which is the Nakash of Genesis chapter 3, the feathered serpent, the winged guardian of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, as it says in the book of Adam and Ua, which I'm going to make available, I think, with the printing of my next book, because I have the only English translation of it, and it's a text that is put out by the Thracians, which is a couple thousand years older than the Sumerian text. And they were also worshipers and believers of the Most High, which confirms that that the Bible is not based on Sumerian teachings, and that knowledge of Yahweh, Yahuwah, the Most High, and the Son, that it preceded the Sumerians and is actually much older, which we, those of us that have discernment have known this for a long time, but so many people believe that the Bible is based on the Sumerian teachings, when the Sumerian teachings are not even the oldest. They're the oldest post Noah's flood, but they're the cultures and civilizations and those that disappeared with the flood of Noah's day, and even with the flood, the Atlantean destruction. That knowledge of the Father and the Son goes back to ancient times, and in fact is embedded into the stars, into the heavens, so that the celestial night sky, the planets, the moon, the sun, and the stars, all of those spoke about the special significance of Christ's immaculate conception and also his death on the cross. Which, how could you know that, and how could you make the stars align to and correspond with his life and death? You can't, unless you're the creator. Alright, so continuing. And so this also, these particular serpent-headed beings, they are also, the worship of the feathered serpent, the Nakash by the Mayans, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, what Credo Mutwa calls the Chitauri. It's all the same thing. But know ye, the masters were mighty in magic, and able to lift the veil from the face of the serpent, able to send him back to his place. Came they to man and taught him the secret, the word that only a man can pronounce. Swift then the veil, they lifted the veil from the serpent and cast him forth from place among men. Yet beware, the serpent still liveth in a place that is open at times to the world. Unseen they walk among thee in places where the rites have been said. Again, as time passes onward, shall they take the semblance of men. So this is the same thing as Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, where it says that they will mingle themselves among the seed of men. Same thing. Isn't it amazing how all the ancient texts, all once you understand, they all align together and they give greater clarity and become confirming witness for one another, and that they open us to things that we can only make sense of now. The Spirit is being poured out on all flesh. And so, Jazz is asking me how you spell the man's name. It's Credo space Mutwa. Credo Mutwa. He was a South African Sangoma, which means medicine man, and he was the one that had worked with David Icke, reporting about these particular strange entities, these strange beings, and you know, he talks about it from the oral traditions that have been passed down among the indigenous, the native peoples there in Africa for thousands and thousands of years. And again, this information is all found in my 6th book, Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here. Not this part on the scroll of Thotis, but I will make it available in the part that I do on Atlantis in what will be my next book, which has a focus on the war in heaven, the destroyer, Atlantis, and the last days. So, I don't trust Ike either. In fact, I know that he's a disinformation agent and that he works, you know, he's part of the secret societies and that, you know, he's one of those Freemasonic type of people, even does the handshakes, and he's a denier of Christ. You know, believes that Christ is an ascended master and that we can all aspire to be Christ as gods ourselves. Same thing that Satan tempted Adam and Eve to fall from grace and to lose their immortality and to be kicked out of paradise for. Same thing that he tricks and deceives all the Masons and all those that are part of the secret societies into believing that, you know, they are gods themselves, and the whole Friedrich Nietzsche, Superman, that kind of thing. All right. Yes, I know I claim to be Christ the Messiah. You can find that as well. All right, we're going to continue with the last part of this particular text. The Scroll of Thotis. Now the great house of the hidden places stands in Kehamu. It is built to last forever. I'm going to open up the last scroll. Or the last scan. Now the great house of the hidden places stands in Kehamu. It is built to last forever, and stands up strongly towards heaven, high above the heads of men. It is covered with white stones. The white stone of Rehoboam was cut for it, and above it is topped with copper. It is not the copper of men, but the copper of God. Within it lies the womb of rebirth, used by the twice-born of the enlightened ones. Men enter its portals to die and come out restored to life, reborn as gods. Now this is, in my opinion, just a figure of speech, much like what they do during the initiations, the Skull and Bones initiations, where they lay down in this grave and they, bear all their secrets, and then they come out as part of these secret societies. Not that they're actually reborn, but reborn in kind of secret society lingo. Besides, it stands the temple of the radiant ones, many pillared and walled about. Here is the great portal of entry into life, and above it, on a great stone, these words may be seen. From the children of God to the children of men, behold, we found you in bondage to mortal bodies, and bestowed upon you the gift of everlasting life. For those that have studied about the pyramids, because it sounds to me, because the pyramid also, the capstone, the very top, it was covered in some kind of metallic, copper, gold, whatever it was, a conductor of energy, and it was able to draw down forces as above, so below, they say. And that there was, supposedly not a sarcophagus that, somebody was buried in, but supposedly something that they would use as initiation, where people would lay down and they would have to stay in this kind of sarcophagus or coffin for 3 days, and they would receive all these different visions, and that it was part of the initiation, and if they could survive it, they would come out as new men of knowledge. That this particular passage sounds similar to that particular initiation. My brothers, these are the days of distress, and no man knows the outcome of the strife that rends the land. For long generations this was a land of peace, a land blessed with bounty. But now men have wrought evil upon it. They who have gone to save it may not complete their journey back, and naught shall have been achieved. Therefore I say unto you, prepare to depart hence, even as it is written, let the things that are more valuable than life be brought to safety. Above life and land is God. He is above life and land. Alright, if I can find it, I'm going to read one more passage from the Emerald Tablets, which talks about the destruction of Atlantis. We'll try to find it real quick. Because it talks about how the temple was covered over. Give me just a minute. Okay, I think this is it. Huh. If I can't find it, I'll just make final commentary and we'll continue. But if I can find it, I think it would be a great way to end this particular text and this particular show. Because it even speaks about how they flew off and how they came to the land of Kim. Okay, this might be it. Hold on. Okay, yeah, I think this is it. Let me verify. All right, yeah, I believe this is it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read this. This is from the fifth tablet, and I'm only going to read a part of it. Light there was in ancient Atlantis, yes, darkness too was hidden in awe. Fell from the light into the darkness some who had risen to the heights among men. Proud they became because of their knowledge, proud were they of their place among men. Deep delved they into the forbidden, opened the gateway that led to the below. Sought they to gain ever more knowledge, but seeking to bring it up from below. He who descends below must have balance, else he is bound by lack of our light. Open they then by their knowledge pathways forbidden to man. But in his temple the all-seeing dweller lay in his aguanti, which through Atlantis his soul roamed free. He saw the Atlanteans by their magic opening up the gateway that would bring to earth a great woe. Fast fled his soul, then back to his body. Up he arose from his aguanti. Called he the three mighty messengers, gave the commands that shattered the world. Deep beneath the earth's crust to the halls of Amente, swiftly they descended to the dweller. Then down sank Atlantis beneath the dark waves, shattered the gateway that had been opened, shattered the doorway that led down below. All of the islands were shattered except Unal, and part of the island of the sons of the dweller. Preserved he them to be the teachers, lights on the path for those who would come after, lights for the lesser children of men. Skip just a little bit. Then gathered I the sons of Atlantis into the spaceship. I brought all my records, brought the records of sunken Atlantis. Gathered I all my powers, instruments many of mighty magic. Up then we rose on wings of the morning. High we rose above the temple, leaving behind the three and the dweller deep in the halls beneath the temple. Down beneath the waves sank the great temple, closing the pathways to the lords of the cycles. Yet ever to him who has knowing open shall be the path to Amente. Fast fled we then on the wings of the morning, fled to the land of the children of Chem. There by my power I conquered and ruled them, raised I to light the children of Chem, which Chem is Egypt, for those that don't know. Deep beneath the rocks I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. Over the spaceship erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto man. There beneath the image rests yet my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall arise. Know ye, O man, that far in the future invaders shall come from out of the deep. Then awake ye who have wisdom, and bring forth my ship, and conquer with ease. Deep beneath the image lies my secret. Search and find in the pyramid I built. Each to the other is the keystone, each the gateway that leads into life. Follow the key I leave behind me. Seek, and the doorway to life shall be thine. Seek thou in my pyramid, deep in the passages that ends in a wall. Use thou the key of the seven, and open to thee the pathway will fall. All right. So, according to this particular text, Thoth is supposedly the builder of the pyramid, and that also the builder, the sculptor of the Sphinx, and that under the Sphinx he had buried this craft. We know that Casey speaks about there being like a hall of records, a library of wisdom up underneath the I believe it's the right hand of the right paw of the Sphinx. I can't remember exactly, but anyways, it's interesting to me that this text, the Emerald Tablets, which is supposedly 35,000 years old, and that was released to the public by the secret societies, and that many of the texts that are now coming to light have been released by secret societies that have been holding them and keeping them, and a lot of them have been kept from the masses and kept from the public for a very long time and to never be released. We know that there's a whole huge library underneath the Vatican of who knows what kind of information. It would definitely be interesting. I just got a message from Exit Babylon. Exit Babylon, just so you know, I did hear from Dr. Joy, and she's been really busy trying to take care of Mel, her husband, who's been sick and he's been having medical issues. But I did hear from her, and she's going to be coming on to my show, for all of you to know as well, on November 26th or 29th, I believe. It's the last Wednesday in the month of November. She'll be joining me to speak about some of the things that I wrote in my fourth book, namely how the serpent seed survived the flood, the giants and the fallen angels, as well as some new information about Prince William and Kate and the Antichrist and all that. And so she's fine. She's okay. She's been just tremendously busy. Those of you that have been trying to contact her through email, she hasn't been able to correspond immediately. So just know, but she's doing fine. Just please pray for her and her husband, and know that she's trying to do everything she can to continue with her research while taking care of her husband and providing the best care that she can for him, and also meeting all of the doctor's visits and going to various specialists to try to find a diagnosis and even where they actually tell her what's going on, so that they can approach and try to remedy the situation and best address the whole health problems. And so that's what's going on with her, but just know that she is fine. We're at the end of the show. I hope that you enjoyed the Scroll of Thotis. I will be doing a show this Wednesday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. on Revolution Radio Studio B with Fritz Springmeier, the author of the 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Please do join us there if you can. It's sure to be a very interesting show. Dolores Lundberg, our friend and kind sister, and the one that is keeping up with the Sons of God study group on Facebook, she's going to be on the sidelines there and kind of guiding both Fritz and I in our discussion. And I'm sure it's going to be beneficial to all of you. So join us when you can. God bless all. I hope that you are led in discernment and truth, and that the Father and Son keep you in their protection and lead you in your seeking of truth. Till next week, God bless. Good night.